Hi again, Cobba. Me Cobba's a good bloke, I reckon. What do you reckon, mate? Anyway, I am Jackaroo Turu, and on this channel I focus on Australian Aborigines, languages, cultures, history, and so on. And I thought I should make use of the fact that I have the outline of the Australian continent on my board here to talk a little bit more about phonetics and phonology. Now, one thing that languages in Australia are known for is that they are big on nasals and stops. Nasals are sounds that are produced with a flow of air through the nasal cavity, and so on. And with stops, you create a blockage. At some point in the mouth, you stop the flow of air and you let a certain amount of pressure build up, and then you release it. So like B or P, if I exaggerate just a little bit. So Australian Aboriginal languages either have 5 or 6 different nasal sounds, phonemes, and different stops. Now, concerning the stops, we need to note that while in most of the world there is a difference between voiceless and voiced, so that these are different phonemes. The voiceless T is a different phoneme, distinctive speech sound, than is voiced D. This is not the case, generally speaking, in Australia. Instead, place of articulation, so where in the mouth you produce the sound in question, that is what is relevant. So B and P then are the same phoneme, the same sound, and which one you produce depends on context. That is to say, what comes before and after. In the beginning of words, you generally find the voiceless versions, so P, T, K, and so on. Within words, often the voiced versions. When it comes to different places of articulation in the mouth, different places where we produce sounds, Dixon, that would be Professor R.M.W. Dixon, he makes this distinction. First, he has places of articulation that he calls marginal. So, in front of the mouth, bilabial, B and M, and at the back, so and G, K. Where Australian Aboriginal stops and nasals are concerned, you don't get further back than that. So, Australian Aboriginal languages either have 5 or 6 different places of articulation, leading to 10 or 12 phonemes. And specifically, it is here that we find differences. Apical, that has to do with the tip of the tongue, and lamino is the blade of the tongue. So that would be the part of the tongue that is behind the tip, so to speak. So, Australian Aboriginal languages have apico-alveolar consonant sounds, D, T. Most Australian Aboriginal languages have retroflex, post-alveolar. I have talked more about this, about retroflex sounds, in another video. Here the tip of the tongue is pointing forwards and it's touching the alveolar ridge, which is the part of the mouth behind the teeth, the upper teeth. Here the tip of the tongue is pointing backwards and the tip of the tongue is a little further back. Groups of Australian Aboriginal languages, I will show you on this map soon. Groups of Australian Aboriginal languages have both lamino-dental and lamino-palatal. Other groups of languages have only one of these. So the lamino-dental is pronounced or produced differently in different languages. In many languages it is a lamino-interdental. That is the technical term. That means that the tip of the tongue is touching the back of the lower teeth and that the blade of the tongue is pushed out between the teeth. So that would be and also In other languages, the tongue only touches the upper teeth, and in some Australian languages the tongue is pushed out between the teeth. So yes, so different pronunciations there. This is not the case to the same extent here. So here we have n is the nasal. Anyway, in 4 areas in Australia, the languages have both lamino-palatal and lamino-dental as different phonemes. So there is a huge area stretching from up here all the way around the Gulf of Carpentaria. It includes the Cape York Peninsula and all of eastern Australia, and in the south all the way over here. Though we should note that a number of East Coast languages along the East Coast are not included. Otherwise, this area covers all languages here. We have a much smaller area up in the Kimberleys, non-Pama-Nyungan languages there. A small area including some Western Desert dialects in Australia's Western Desert, only some. The Western Desert language has and had originally a great many dialects. And the 4th area, where the languages have both these phonemes, is found in Western Australia. A largish area north of the Noongar dialects in the southwest, and south of the Ngara and the Nyamal languages, 2 closely related languages in the northernmost part of the Pilbara region. And Ngara is the language I have studied and described. And I can tell you that I was very happy that Ngara only has 5 places of articulation instead of 6. because you absolutely have to produce the right nasal in the right context, unlike in the Scandinavian languages that I grew up with. And for me, as a speaker of a Scandinavian language and a European language, some of these distinctions between the nasals can be very difficult to hear with 5 places of articulation. So 6 places of articulation would have been even worse. So when there are 5 places of articulation and thus 10 phonemes, as in the rest of Australia, then sometimes the languages have these phonemes, these sounds, sometimes these sounds, and sometimes the pronunciation varies depending on context. This will be all for today, but I will be back, so see you later.